Hey, everybody, welcome. And so welcome, Derek. I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Welcome to the Law of Attraction Tips podcast. And again, it's been a couple of years, I think 3 years since we last did a podcast together. And I'm so pleased to be able to do this with you today.
Wow, that's crazy. It's my honor and pleasure to be here, really. I can't believe it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I know. I know. Well, and so, Derek, what we're going to talk about today is how to create abundance in any area, no matter what. And
good topic.
Yeah, it is. It's very cool because I think, what I hear from the people who listen to the podcast and my clients is, money is mostly associated with abundance. Of course, there's abundance in all areas, but if we could start to talk about abundance and how to create that in any area, no matter what. And to me, it's like the no matter what. That's the key piece. It's like, well, what do you mean no matter what? So yes. Tell me your views on that.
Yeah, well, the idea, abundance is, and we'll redefine and hopefully reconceptualize some things here. But yeah, abundance isn't just money, although that's one expression of it, one symbol of it. And abundance in generally means having more than enough to meet all of your needs, with some left over. And that there's what I call the abundance principle. And in general, abundance is directly correlated to the volume and velocity, or the quantity and quality of circulation in your life. Mm. That the level of energetic circulation, the more you are circulating your life force, your energy, and we'll talk about the different ways, the more abundance you have. Mm-hmm. And this is initially based off of my work before. This work we're talking about today, the abundance work, the wealth work, it's based on a really popular program of mine called Awakened Wealth, and a new book I have coming out called The Abundance Project. But where this started was with my work around emergence. Right. And I'm known for the law of emergence. Mm-hmm. And the big revelation there, after 2 decades of self-improvement and struggling to attract and achieve and heal my life and get over my bad childhood and all of that, was that the more self-improvement I did, the more inadequate and frustrated I became. And the only thing I improved was my ability to describe why my life was so messed up. And, all the therapy, when I was 10, my dad saw my report card and there was all A's and 1 B, and all he thought was, what's with the B, son? So I could describe all of the reasons why my life wasn't working, but it was still not working.
Right.
And this eventually led to, a variety of breakdowns, but ultimately almost dying, basically a near-death, brush with death experience that finally cracked me open. And I saw that the self that I've been trying to fix, change, heal, and improve, attract, achieve, was a fictional character, an amalgam of parental fantasy, peer pressure, societal conditioning, and that nothing I ever did was going to make him enough. But right behind him or around him, there was another self that was never damaged, so he didn't need to be fixed. Yeah. And he was already whole, so he couldn't actually be improved upon. Mm. And so the whole idea of self-improvement was an oxymoron, that the real self, when you understand it, is already whole, complete, and perfect. Now, this was just a flicker. I was about to drown, basically, in a coral reef when this happened.
Right.
But it so shattered my perception that I pulled out of society, tried to become a monk. That didn't work out so well. So I cloistered myself in my apartment, and I went on this inner journey. And what I discovered was that just like the oak tree is already in the acorn, and the acorn doesn't have to go out and attract or achieve or become worthy of an oak, it doesn't have to go out and build an oak, that the oak is already in the acorn.
Right.
Not just in genetic code, but in the quantum field, the whole vibrational reality of the oak is fully orbed and fully exists. Just like radio, right now our favorite music is playing, but it's not manifest in our experience because we're not tuned into that frequency. But the minute we tune our dial to that frequency, that station becomes manifest.
Right.
Or as I like to say, we have a manifestation. But where was the music before? It was there fully. right? So the oak is there fully, but it's not yet manifest because the conditions haven't tuned in to allow for its full emergence.
Right.
So that was the revelation I had, some years ago that led to the law of emergence and all of that work. But as I taught that and kept teaching that, one of the pieces in the emergence framework is give what appears missing, because whatever's missing is what you're not giving.
Right.
And the reason is because what I call the great reversal, we're not actually in the world, the whole world is in us. And the world can't add anything to us. We actually brought it all with us,
right.
like the acorn, like the apple seed, whatever. And so whatever's not in our experience, it's not because the economy's bad or our parents didn't do it right or our partner's withholding or all the reasons we've made up and then we try to solve. None of that is true. The only reason why something more isn't in our experience is because we haven't let more out of us. If you want more to come into your life, you have to let more life come out of you, because everything that comes into your experience can only come as it comes through you, through your consciousness. So that's just to respond to your question, no matter what. So it means that no matter what condition you're facing, ultimately the answer, the solution, the supply, the abundance, everything you need to solve, resolve, overcome, and ultimately triumph in that condition, you've already got it all. You
right.
just have to know how to let it out. So that's the first piece to understand.
Okay. So I've got a question about that, because I think what happens here, and again, I kind of going back to the whole idea about money. It's like I can hear people kind of going, ah. So, but what about this? Because you said give what is missing, right? And so people don't have money, right? And I see this all the time. So they don't have they don't have cash. They don't have that to give, right? You have the time. They have other things that they could give, but they don't have
right.
They don't have cash. But what ends up happening is that there's kind of a misconception. It's like, oh well, if I act as if, then the money will come to me. And so they go out and charge on their credit cards and overspend and do that because, they're acting as if, right? I even think about my husband and I years ago. It's just like, oh, we're just keeping the economy going.
Right.
Back when the recession started. And there's just such a challenge for that for people. It's like, okay, well, that didn't work, right?
Yeah.
So can you explain, can you kind of
Absolutely.
Go a little bit into depth?
I can totally break down why that doesn't work when it doesn't work and why it does when it does. And a couple things. First of all, we have to understand that money is not wealth or abundance. Right. Money is one of the symbols of it. So I'm going to put a pin in that. We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
The second thing is, often when we're trying to act as if, it's a kind of quid pro quo. We're like, okay, I'm going to step out now, universe, and I'm going to trust, blah, blah, blah. Now, okay, where's my good?
Give it to me yet. Yeah.
And already we're off the beam. In that moment, we're already out of alignment with the way it works, because there isn't anything to come back to you. It doesn't work that way. It's really coming out of you, out of your consciousness. And if you're doing it to get something in consciousness, follow me, you're already saying you don't have it.
Right.
And so you can't give from not having. If you give from not having, you will multiply the consciousness of not having. I want you guys to hear that. So if you give and you do all that stuff from a place of not having, you will be more likely to multiply your experience of not having, because that's actually what you're circulating. It's not the credit card action. It's not the money. It's your state of consciousness is what you're really circulating.
Right.
And that's why it says in the Bible, to he who has, more will be given and it shall be multiplied. And to he who has not, even what he has will be taken away.
Right.
So that state of consciousness of I have, and then you give from that place, not to get anything. Because if you have it, you're not seeking to get anything. Understand, life has everything. Mm-hmm. You are a unique expression of life. So from life's perspective, life is not shining and creating and going, okay, if I do all this creation, someday they're going to love me and they're going to worship me or they're going to give me. life doesn't have any of those thoughts in its being.
Right.
It only knows I am full to overflow. I have everything. All I can do is circulate and express. That's all that's left. And so what we're trying to do is get in alignment with that principle. The more we can operate like life is, which is who we really are, then the more we will demonstrate the same level of creation power that life has. And everything you see and form came out of nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, there was nothing or no thing, but really it was pregnant with everything.
Right.
And out of that dark void, Big Bang happened in all of creation. We are here to represent that same process. Out of nothing or out of no thing, but ultimately out of the everything, we are able to manifest and express whatever we need. So that's the piece there. Now to go back to, did you have a question about that before I go back to the money is not wealth?
No, keep going. Yeah.
And the abundance principle and what we talk about in the Abundance Project book and all of that is, and what we're going to talk more about, you know, I know I'm dropping some big concepts and we're going down the rabbit hole a little bit, but it's actually very practical, methodical, step-by-step, how you become in alignment with this principle.
Right.
So that you can start manifesting abundance the natural way that you were designed.
Right.
So the first big idea or principle, as we've already covered, is what I call the great reversal. And that is that life's not happening to you, it's happening through you and from you. So that's the first piece.
Right.
We have to get, okay? The second piece is the understanding of the real nature and source of wealth or abundance. And I liken this to a fruit tree. A fruit tree, the fruit of the tree is not the wealth of the tree. Okay, so think of the fruit as the dollar bills, the stocks, the bonds, the houses, whatever, right? That's the fruit of the tree. It's not the wealth of the tree, though. And because if it was, when all the fruit was gone, the farmer would say that tree's broke, let's cut it down.
Right.
But the farmer sees the tree just as wealthy and abundant when it has no fruit on it as when it does. The difference is just it's harvest time, it's fruiting and blossoming, and in between it's gestating and developing for the next harvest.
Right.
But it's just as abundant, right? And so the same is true for us. No matter what your bank account looks like, no matter what it is, you're always equally abundant, but you may or may not be cultivating to be able to show forth the harvest as you're designed to do. So wealth is invisible. Abundance is that invisible mechanism that the tree has for turning the raw material of the soil into the sap, the blossom, the flower, and the fruit. Now, even more than that, they've done studies where they'll put a tree in a tub, they'll measure the weight of everything, soil and everything, they'll take it through its growth process till it fruits, and they'll remeasure, and that tree has taken nothing from the soil. Mm-hmm. I want you guys to hear that. So in other words, it did not take the soil and use up the soil to produce its fruit. So where did it come from? Because ultimately, if that was true, we would have run out of earth a long time ago, right? All the flowers and plants and trees would have used up all the soil and we would just be a little rock somewhere. But clearly it's not happening, right? So what it's doing is it's using the soil as the condition to activate this invisible potential. But it doesn't ultimately take anything away from the soil. And the same is true for us. So the fruit is the evidence of the wealth of the tree. It's not the source of it. So the real substance of wealth is that invisible mechanism and capacity to turn the raw material of our consciousness into the fruits of our life, into the wealth of our life. Sometimes that will show up as dollar bills. Sometimes it will show up as a house, as an opportunity, as a new partner, whatever. But the more we are connected to and generating from that place, or as I like to say, we're not leaning on resource, we're leaning on the source. Mm. And the more we can lean on and live from the source, the invisible source that created everything you're seeing and that will continue to, the more we'll be able to produce that over and over. Now, I want to say one other little piece about the money thing, because this is important. And, you know, that old saying, money is the root of all evil. And it's actually the love of money is the root of all evil.
Right.
So most people get it wrong. But even when they have the whole saying, they don't understand what it really means. From this idea now, this framework, you can see that money is not the wealth, right? It's just the symbol of wealth. So what that saying is saying is not that money's bad. Which is what we think, which is what the religious guilt and shame has created around money.
Right.
For a lot of us heart-centered, spiritually minded people, we actually have a lot of baggage around that.
Sure.
And I say it's hard to be a light in the world if you can't pay your light bill. So, but it's saying the love of the symbols of wealth is the root of all evil. Because if you believe the dollar bill is your source, or the job, or the parent, or the partner, you will have to start giving them your power.
Right.
And you will have to start doing all kinds of crazy things to get the thing you think they have, or to hold on to the thing you think they might take away. So the love of the symbols of wealth is the root of all evil. And because you're living life in reverse, you're putting your power in the exact opposite place where it actually exists, outside of you. And the universe is set up to betray you whenever you put your power in something other than the source within you. And so the love of the outer symbol. And what is the word evil? It's the word live spelled backwards. So when you live the principles in opposition, you're going to create what we call evil or negative consequences. Just like if you wire your wall socket in reverse to the principles of electricity, you're going to have a problem. You're going to burn your house down, or at the very least not get any power.
My dad did that once.
So that's what's happening. So we can let go of the shame, the guilt, the baggage, that money's bad or money's not good, but we need it. And for those of you that don't have money and you think you don't have baggage around that, let me tell you, you do. I know from working with hundreds of thousands of people that heart-centered, spiritually minded people have a lot of baggage around having a lot.
Right.
It's bad, it's selfish, it's greedy, it's stingy, it's the cause of all the pain and suffering on the planet. No, the irony is the cause of most of the pain and suffering is the belief that something or someone outside of us is our source of wealth or support or safety. Not the money, but the belief that the thing outside is our source. So that's what we're reversing here. We're healing a lot of that, and we're putting you guys back in the driver's seat to know where your real power is, your real source, your real supply, and where abundance really comes from. So that's the setup, that it's all within you. Nothing's ever going to come to you. It's got to come through and from you. And you've already got it all, but it's largely invisible or energetic, like that music playing on the station you're not yet tuned into. And then the natural next question is, okay, it's all in me. I've got it all. How do I start getting it out? How do I start circulating it? How do I start manifesting that station? So that would be the next, obviously, logical question.
It was my next question.
Okay. So I want to see if there's any other questions, just to make sure, like, if any part of this is still not clear, or it's a little too woo-woo, or...
You're talking to the queen of woo-woo, so no.
Okay. The queen of woo.
But well, I know I can just again kind of have that feeling that it's like okay, yeah, I get it, but how do I get that out? Well, how do I, does that mean I have to have skills? Does that mean I have to go to do I have to get a different job? Do I have to expand what I'm already doing? Do I have to go back to school? All those things. Those are kind of all the things that I know people would start to ask. It's like, okay, great. How do I get that out? How do I, if I'm putting myself out there and that's going to, and I'm going to then be the source of that abundance. And I also kind of want to say, and then I attract that money, right? But it's not that you're saying that that's not it. It's actually
the law of attraction is a real principle. Mm-hmm. But what we have to understand where the law of attraction lives in the scheme of manifestation.
Sure.
It's a relative principle, meaning it's actually operating. But the challenge and the trick with it is when you're trying to use the law of attraction or think in terms of attracting, it's very easy to slip into a sense of separation.
Sure.
To think I'm attracting something I don't have yet.
Right.
And that's where then you actually can use the law of attraction in such a way that you repel the very thing you want.
Right.
Because you're saying, in a sense, I don't have it, I don't have it, I don't have it, as you're trying to attract it, right? And so So but when you activate the law of emergence, which means starting from the standpoint, I've already got it all. Nothing can come to me. It all has to come through me. It's all an activation or radiation of my consciousness. And then as I am radiating and circulating and being who I really am in this dimension of polarity and duality, how it appears is it appears as a cause and effect relationship. It appears as a like attracts like relationship. But that's all relative, as we now know from quantum physics. That's Newtonian reality,
right?
Cause and effect, but it's not really what's happening. At the quantum level, there's just one thing.
Right.
It's already complete. And as you activate it through your attention and intention and your cultivation of alignment with it, it emerges into the field of opposites. And as it emerges and it creates the appearance of polarities, masculine, feminine, interaction, cause, effect, and attraction. That's awesome. And that works. But if you're doing it and trying to operate at the level of the polarity, I'm going to cause this to be attracted to me, then you're saying I don't have.
Sure, yeah.
And even if through sheer willpower, you are able to manifest that bigger paycheck, you will find yourself just broke at a higher income bracket.
Sure.
Right? You'll manifest the bigger house and you'll feel even less at home. Right? So it's an awesome principle and it works. We just have to work it in a larger context so that we don't create unnecessary separation.
Yeah.
And I know this from experience. I attracted all kinds of stuff. I manifested all kinds of stuff. And then I had to pray myself out of the mess that I manifested myself into. Because it wasn't right for me and I wasn't able to contain it. So that's a whole other conversation. But it's important to know, as you guys are using the law of attraction processes, many of them are the same as emergence work, but you just have to have that mindset that you've already got it.
Yeah.
It's already in you.
Yeah.
And now you can use the visualization and the different things, you know.
Yeah. To me, it was almost about becoming aware, right? Because when you become aware that it does exist around you, and that's, I mean, as I learned more about law of attraction, that's what how it unfolded. It was like, you need to be, becoming in a vibration, and harmony with that, right? Which just allows you then to see it because it is all around you. I saw that happen so often, not only to myself, but to people I coached, where it's like, well, I want this. And it's like, well, but it's right. It's here now. So if it is here now, how can we be aware of it? So anyways, but yeah, so please carry on.
Vibrational match. Becoming a vibrational match. It's just the distinction is you're becoming a match because that's already who you are.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The acorn and the perfect system of the ecosystem, it creates a conditional match to the seed pattern already in that shell.
Right.
And when that matches, oak emerges.
Right.
The oak was already there, so just like the station, the music is already broadcasting, but when the frequency matches, that broadcast is manifest in your experience. Right. And that's another little piece about manifestation. We often think manifestation is I'm going to make something happen or appear that's not already happening or is not already here. And that's not true.
Right.
It is already happening. It is already here. You're just making it visible and tangible in this dimension. But it is as real and as alive and as present as it ever will be.
Yeah.
You're just coming into alignment to bring it into expression.
Right.
And there's a reason for that, because if you didn't have the mechanism of consciously modulating what you're aligning with or not, all of the infinite reality of possibility would be manifest simultaneously and there would be no experience. So imagine if you didn't have to tune into any station to get music. You would have all stations playing all the time and you would just have noise. There would be no music.
Right.
So this is why, because some people say, why is it so hard if life loves us and we're supported? Why do we have to do all this work to make this work? And it's because of this, because like a camera, if there wasn't an aperture that opened for a moment and just captured a sliver, you would have just all overexposed white space and you'd have no picture, i.e. no experience. So that's what we're really understanding is the mechanisms by which we consciously choose to tune into parts of our infinite being and bring that part into expression in this experience, and then the next part and the next part. So, okay, so should we talk about the circulation part?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. So, so once you understand that it's all within you, that it's invisible, that the volume and the velocity of circulation, or the quantity and quality of circulation, is what determines your abundance, the next question is obviously, how do you start circulating it? And it's important also, you know, some of the words we use for wealth give us a clue. Words like currency, which is money. Well, currency comes from a similar root as current, which means flow. Mm-hmm. And like the flow of electricity is a current, the flow of water is a current. So it's talking about flow or circulation, right? And then you get currency out of that. Mm. Similarly, the word affluent, which we think of as meaning wealthy, comes from a root word that means to flow, right, or to flow into. So again, we're seeing there's this interesting little clue that it's really all about flow and circuit. And if you think of a circuit, if the circuit isn't flowing, if it's broken anywhere, you don't have a signal. You don't have energy. You end up ultimately having stagnation. Mm-hmm. If you have a body of water that doesn't have circulation, a complete circuit, meaning an inlet and an outlet, you end up with either an empty, barren basin if it only has an outlet and no inlet, or you end up with a swamp.
Yeah.
Stagnation.
Right.
And so circulation is the opposite of stagnation, and circulation and expanded circulation is the magical word for creating a life of never-ending unfoldment and abundance. Because stagnation actually is connected to the root understanding of the word hell. Hell doesn't mean a place with fire and brimstone. It actually means stagnation. Mm. And heaven comes from a similar root as the word leaven, like the leaven in the bread that keeps it expanding. Heaven means ever expanding good. So hell is when you live in a state where you don't have an inlet or an outlet, where you're holding on to your little idea and it just stagnates and it's death. Heaven is when you are living in this complete circuit of circulation, flowing, ever expanding life expression. Okay? So I'm just making these connections for you guys so you start to go, wow, there really is something here. Yeah. This isn't just some clever new concept in some new book somebody's writing. This is real. This is a real principle. So now we have to go, okay, well, how do I start to activate this more in my life?
Right.
And the framework in the Abundance Project and also in the Awaken Wealth work is what I call the 7 gifts that give you everything, mm-hmm. or otherwise known as the 7 wealth activators. But the 7 gifts are, and I'll list them and then we can kind of tap into some of them. So think of them like 7 channels of your circulation. Mm-hmm. And that is giving out, which is for time, talent, and treasure. Giving away, which is all the stuff you may have in your home, your car, your garage that is not being used, that is not bringing you joy. Giving up, which is about giving up the patterns, gossip, criticism, complaining that you love to hate, that you love to go into, that you don't want to let go of. These little patterns or furniture in your mind that is blocked, that is just literally stagnated energy, just like all the stuff you're not letting go of in your physical life. So giving out, giving away, giving up, giving in. Giving in is another way to understand surrender. That there's something that's trying to emerge in your life. There's new energy, new flow, and you're holding on to an old static concept or construct and stagnating that flow.
Right.
And you're trying to find a way to dance around it and navigate around it and stay safe in your small little paradigm, your small little acorn shell, while the oak of your being is trying to crack through. And that's giving in. You got to surrender. You're not acquiescing to the bad situation. You're yielding to the oak of your being. You're yielding to the greater emergence or the greater flow. So we have giving out, giving away, giving up, giving in, and then we have giving thanks. And in the book, I talk about a much different way of understanding gratitude. And it's important because we hear about gratitude so much, but we often don't really know what the mechanism is behind gratitude. Like, why does gratitude work? And the more you understand why it works, you won't just be doing gratitude just because everybody says you should be grateful. You'll understand that gratitude is the evidence that the gift has already been given. Mm-hmm. And so when you're in a state of gratitude, life will keep giving you reasons to be grateful. But it's not because it's not showing up so that you're grateful. The frequency of gratitude keeps reflecting and manifesting situations that match it. And ultimately, the spectrum of gratitude is, first of all, you're grateful for nothing. Then you find something to be grateful for. Then you learn to be grateful for everything, including the so-called bad stuff. Mm-hmm. And then eventually you're grateful for nothing again, meaning you're grateful for no thing. You're
right.
just a state of gratitude. So that's what this gift is all about. So giving out, giving up, giving away, giving up, giving in, giving thanks. And now here's the big one, you heart-centered, spiritually minded people, giving to yourself. Okay? So this is one of the most missing pieces. Because again, a lot of heart-centered, spiritually minded people became that way because you were wounded at a very young age around the power structures of the world. Whether it was an overbearing parent, whether it was an out-of-control home, whether it was other kinds of mental, emotional, physical abuse, whatever, or a father that was working so much he was never there, you got a message that this world is dangerous or not safe or doesn't quite get you. And you had to go in, you had to reject some of those pieces and go in and find your sense of safety or self in your creative imagination, in your heart, or in your spirit. And the blessing of that was you've developed a lot of proclivities and sensitivities and abilities to plumb those depths. And the challenge is part of you had to reject a lot of the power structures of the world and see them as bad. And one of them is definitely selfishness. You know, you got a message somewhere along the way that it wasn't okay to want what you want and to want as much as you want. Don't you see how busy mommy is? You know, or don't you see those starving kids over there? Or why do you want so much? Little Johnny doesn't want as much as you. And we got these messages that it wasn't okay to want, wasn't okay to need, it wasn't okay to have. You know, you got a little toy and before you got a chance to enjoy it, it was pulled out of your hands and you were forced to share it. Right. So all these things happened. And as a result, we haven't really learned to fill ourselves up, to give ourselves what we need, to ask for what we want, to charge what we're worth. Some of you heart-centered coaches and healers aren't charging anything, and that's got to stop. That's a whole nother conversation. But it's about really owning that. So how this shows up in practicality is in a relationship or a situation where you are, let's say, waiting for somebody to give you some love or validation or respect or appreciation, anything. And maybe you're also doing some things to try to get it from them. Like you're being nice, you're being good, you're being helpful, you're a people pleaser, a do-gooder. You're still daddy's little helper or mama's little helper or whatever. And there's an unconscious belief, if I just keep giving and showing up and giving and taking care of and giving and showing up, eventually I'll get mine. And you don't actually eventually get yours in that equation usually. Right. And you get resentful and you get burned out and you project and you blame the other and all of that, or you just beat yourself up.
Right.
And so what is really happening is all those things you're trying to get from that other person, or you're waiting for them to come, they're calling for you to start giving it to yourself. So it might look like, if it's, let's say, self-validation and self-love and acceptance. If I really loved and accepted myself, loved and respected myself, how would I treat myself? How would I hold myself? How would I take care of myself if I really loved and respected myself? And I knew that I was supported in loving and respecting myself. How would I show up in this job, in this relationship, in my family, with my husband or wife or kids? How would I start to show up? And as you ask that kind of a question, whatever the quality is that appears to be missing, you'll start to be gifted with guidance, little impulses, little memories, little hints. Oh yeah, I need to start doing that for me. I've been telling myself for a long time. And that's the gift you have to start giving yourself to start activating that quality. And again, there's a lot more we could go into about this. I could teach a whole course on just this, and I pretty much do in the book and in the program. But this is so critical, folks, because understand the law of circulation. You cannot give what you don't have.
Yeah.
And so if you're not activating it within yourself and filling yourself up, what you're giving isn't really a gift, by the way, to others. It's really an unconscious quid pro quo.
Sure.
You're running on fumes. You're literally pulling energy out of the cells of your body. You're going into emotional and energetic debt. You cannot give what you don't have. You got to give it to yourself. Then once you have it, you cannot keep what you don't give away. Now you got to give it. Now you got to circulate it. And then finally, you cannot sustain what you don't receive. So that's the other part of it for all of us heart-centered people. There's a lot of love coming at us. There's a lot of good flowing to us, but we don't receive it. You know, it's the compliment where someone says, oh my God, you look so good today, your hair or whatever. And you're like, oh, this whole thing, oh, I don't know, there's nothing. You just deflected that gift. Or
right.
You look so beautiful. Did you lose weight? It's like, oh, what are you talking about? Da, da, da. You know, and you just notice how uncomfortable it is to really receive love. Or it's like, oh, you look good too. Oh, you look great too.
Right.
You got to give it right back, right? So you got to give it to yourself. Then you got to give it away. Then you got to receive it back again.
Right.
That's circulation. You got to breathe in. Then you breathe out.
Right.
And then you got to breathe back in again. If you just try to breathe out, you're going to die. Right?
Yeah.
So this is all connected as we've been talking about circulation, flow. Okay, so that's the sixth gift.
So before you do 7,
yeah,
what I want to do is just I can imagine that people are kind of going, okay, you're talking about this book. Tell me more about that. But we'll get into more about the book in a moment. Yeah. But I want to give you the website to this. So it is theabundanceprojectbook.com. Okay, so for all of you listening in, theabundanceprojectbook.com. So you want to go check that out. Okay.
Definitely. And I think you'll probably also have in the show notes, and if not, we'll get it to you guys. I'm also going to give you guys a free guidebook on the 5 hypnotic wealth spells, which is a really awesome, important thing, which we may not have time to get into today, but it's that basically we're all hypnotized under certain spells. And so when you're hypnotized, you know, you see something that's not really there, or you don't see what is really there. And like the person chasing a white poodle around the stage, and then all of a sudden from the audience point of view, that's just a crazy person chasing nothing. Right? But you see a white poodle. And so some things you're seeing, like obstacles you're seeing, are not really there. And we have to snap you out of that hypnotic spell. And once you snap out of it, you're like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by opportunity and abundance that I couldn't see. And a lot of those walls and snake pits and craziness isn't really a problem. It's not really there. So I'll help you to snap out of those hypnotic wealth spells as well, or also called the abundance blind spots.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. So that when I will have a link for this, and you probably, if you're watching this, it'll be on the video below us, and or if you're listening, it will be in the show notes. Absolutely. Yes. Okay.
And so the 7th gift is, so we have giving out, giving away, giving in, giving thanks, giving to yourself. But I missed one.
Giving up.
And the last one is forgiving. And so forgiveness is an interesting topic. And again, I could do a whole workshop on it, and I do. But it's much more than we've understood. But if you look at the word, forgiving, not for taking, not forgetting. It's actually, it represents a state where you are pro-giving, forgiving. Unforgiving is a state where you are withholding, you are blocking, okay? So almost always behind debt is a story of unforgiveness. And when I walk people through this work, especially in the expanded Awaken Wealth program, they eliminate, in many cases, tons of debt, because unforgiveness is a state of stagnation. Stagnation equals debt. And look at it, you know, when somebody's done you wrong or you've done them wrong and you won't forgive them or you, it's I owe you or you owe me. And when you have a bunch of you owe me's or I owe you's, what do you have? You have debt. You're basically saying, I'm not going to give you love or compassion or forgiveness until you give me back the years you took from me or the money or whatever. And so that state of withholding and holding and waiting is a state of stagnation. Now, why is this so important to understand? Because remember, life's not happening to you. It's happening through you. Whatever is missing is what you're not generating. So when you are looking at someone or some situation and saying, I'm not going to let my love flow in that direction. I'm not going to let my peace flow in that direction. I'm not going to let my joy flow in that direction. I'm not going to let my generosity. I'm going to block all of that. Guess what else you're blocking? Any of that coming into your experience. Because whatever you don't let out of you for someone else, you also can't let out of you for you in that place and to that extent. And so remember, it's not coming to you. It's all flowing out of you. This is also why they say not forgiving somebody is like drinking poison and thinking it's going to hurt them.
Right.
So you are not only keeping what you, and here's the other interesting thing, you're not only not circulating the qualities you want more of, like love and peace and joy and all of that, but what you are circulating is violence and negativity, and that's what you're circulating. So guess what you're going to get? More abundant expressions of those qualities.
Sure.
Okay? So, and that's why, by the way, one of the master teachers, Jesus, and this isn't a religious statement, his main ministry was really about taking violence out of circulation. It's what it was all about. It was about, not an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but love your neighbor, love your enemy, love them 70 times 7, which means basically until you don't need to forgive them anymore and all you feel is love, and turn the other cheek and all these things. It was all about teaching the abundance principle in the expression of unconditional love. And if you can do that, you'll be free and you'll set everybody else free. So, but most people don't understand. They think forgiveness is an ethical thing to do. It's being a good person. The great master teachers were not teaching us how to be good people. They were teaching principle. And so this isn't about you being a good person. It's actually a profoundly selfish act when you understand why you're really doing it. Because you're understanding that whatever you withhold from another is withheld from you.
Right.
And you're like, I don't want to withhold my good from me. I want to shine fully. I'm going to selfishly love you and forgive you and say nothing you could ever say to me or do to me is ever going to block my capacity to love you, to be generous, to want the best for you, to see the truth in you. There ain't nothing you can do to stop my love, man. That's an ultimate selfish stance.
Right.
Because you're saying, I'm not going to block my demonstration of abundance. And then, of course, the byproduct is you really do feel loving towards them. You really do have a shift. You really are in heaven, whereas the other person that's not forgiving is in hell. And then you actually have the chance to lift others into heaven as well, into that expanded state of circulation and abundance. So this is just a little taste of forgiveness of this gift. But as you can see, it's a profound piece of circulation. And when you put all these together, and for all of you listening, one or more of these might be more, you might feel the resonance. Like the first one, giving out, time, talent, and treasure. What that is about is oftentimes in certain areas and at certain times, we want to be of greater service to our loved ones or charity or whatever, but we don't think we have the time. We want to, but we look at our clock and calendar and say, I don't have the time. Well, the wanting to is that circulation trying to happen. And the blockage is you're looking at the calendar and the time and thinking you're a slave or a victim of it, when actually what you need to do is start circulating this gift anyway. Start finding the time, start making the time in little ways. That starts the drip, drip, drip of circulation, and you find it begin to open up. Or the other one is talent. A lot of us with talents, gifts, abilities, we kind of like you said in the beginning around, well, do I need to get a new job, learn some new skills? Maybe, but what you really need to do is to begin to cultivate and develop the genius and the giftedness and that burning desire of your talents. And as a priority, begin to share it. Even if you're a singer, don't wait for somebody to give you a gig. Put a concert on for your cat. Before I began speaking to people all around the world, I was walking around in my underwear speaking to an empty room. And, on road trips, just suddenly giving talks and sermons and whatever in the middle of, no man's land. And my wife would wake up and look over at me, and I'm like, are you giving another talk? I'm like, oh gosh, yes, I am. So you have to start giving your gifts, circulating them. And then it will begin to open the channel. All the erosion and corrosion of it stagnating will start to be washed away. And you'll find you have more inspiration and more opportunity and more ideas. If you wait for it to come to you, you'll be waiting forever.
So I have a question for you, because I for myself and the people that I work with, there is no end of inspiration, right?
Yeah.
And so it's easy to go and want to go in a gazillion different ways at any given time. So what would be your advice to as to which way, what do you pick, right? Because it's like, okay, I could go this way, I could go that way.
That's a very, very big and very, very common question, because I work with a lot of aspiring thought leaders, coaches, teachers, healers, artists, authors. And in almost all cases, it's that question. Oh, I could do this, this, and this. I want to do this, this, and this. What do I do first? A lot of times, the reason why we're so diffused and distracted or kind of bifurcated and fragmented and all that is because there is actually something we want to do most, but we don't trust it. We want to have enough irons in the fire. And this can all be happening at an unconscious level, because somewhere along the line we got a message, right? That you couldn't maybe do it this way. So we've been trying to find a way to, have insurance and offset it and augment it. But there's often something. If I asked you if you really could have the life of your dreams, if you could really do or be and contribute in the way you most want, and you were guaranteed success, what would that be? And there's often something that is, and sometimes it might take a little time, because it might not be obvious or overt, but there's something that's a leading edge, and it's really scary to commit to that.
Right.
It's scary to trust in that. It's scary to be all in for that. And for some of us also that are actually Renaissance people, I am one, like for real. It's also a blessing and a curse. And there's a fear that there's all these other parts of us. We're afraid it's not going to all get its chance to express.
Right.
And then it's important to understand that there are seasons, and that what you have to actually develop is the strength and the structure, the resilience and the stamina to be able to stay the course and do one thing well to fruition. And the journey that it takes you, because what happens is you start to do that, you either get tired, bored, it gets hard, it gets more difficult than you thought, and then all of a sudden the little shiny new thing shows up, and you fall into shiny object syndrome and chase that one. And that happens every time at what I call a threshold. And what you don't understand is that threshold, you need to cross it, because on the other side of that, you're going to develop a strength, a resilience, a character that you're going to need to take you to the next level. But most people hit that threshold and then circle back around, hit that threshold, circle back around. And it's why the average person doesn't live 70 to 90 years. They live the same year 70 to 90 times, because they're just circling the runway, changing jobs, changing mates, changing cereals, changing locations, changing their underwear, hopefully. But the story stays the same, because they're stuck in that first chapter.
Right.
And again, it's another big conversation, but I can say simply, there is something you most want to pursue. Start leaning more into it. Start beginning to develop it as if this is really what you're going to do. And then if you ask yourself, if I was living that fully, who would I be? How would I feel? And what are some of the things I would do regularly? And then little bit by little bit, start re-engineering your way of life so that there's more of that happening. And you'll start feeling the shift start to happen, and the flow or the circulation will start to flow more and more in that direction. And you're going to still hit the thresholds. And when you do, just come to me and we'll talk about how to get over them. But getting the flow, the circulation gets you the momentum. And that's what most people are missing, is the mighty mo, the momentum. Because you need momentum to break out of those inertial patterns that keep pulling you back around again. So, yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot I could say there, but when it comes to the gift of giving up your talents, if you already are really stepping up and stepping forward and circulating that particular gift, then that may not be the gift you need to focus on.
Okay.
It might be on some other area.
Right. Yeah, I have this. I always, I did this podcast a while ago where I just say sometimes the thing is not the thing, and so it's like, okay, it was the thing, that was it, and then it took you so far, but then now is, it's taken you to a different level, and now, you don't have to hold on to that anymore. It's now time to let it go, and so that's what you're just saying, yeah. Exactly,
and the key is commitment. I created a training called the Commitment Code, and the key is that there's another thing, is understand that just because it's hard and scary and difficult doesn't mean you shouldn't be moving in that direction.
Right.
Another myth of the spiritual new age realm is, if it's really hard, it's not in flow, it must be a sign from the universe, I'm not supposed to do this. No, that is not the way the universe gives signs. If that was the case, we would literally be sitting around a campfire living by firelight, and we would have no wheel and no fire and nothing.
Right.
Because every single innovation, invention, spiritual breakthrough, creative breakthrough has been really, really difficult. So it's about, even if you ultimately are moving in the wrong direction, if you move that way with total commitment and resilience, and you build the character to be able to do that and bring a level of joy and excellence and generosity and service, even if, as you're saying, if it turns out that's not the final destination, the you that you'll have now at the end of that will be more available and capable of the new direction that you'll be taking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
But you got to go there first sometimes to get tools and gifts and abilities so that you can then go the next level.
Right.
And if you're waiting for the perfect direction and the perfect surety and the perfect clarity, as I said, you'll be waiting forever, which is why I call this work the Great Weight Loss Program, AIT, because you got to get off your big assets and get to work and commit and bring it out of you, and then you'll discover, I didn't know that was there. Because you were moving forward, you discovered that.
Right. Oh, very cool. Okay, so that was the seven
gifts that give you everything, or also known as the 7 wealth activators.
Okay.
And once you do that, now you're circulating, you're generating, and you'll start to notice new opportunities will show up, new insights will show up, new creative inspirations will show up. A lot of the things you were waiting for, you were waiting with, and you were weighing down.
Right.
So that's why I said it's the Great Weight Loss Program. But now you're expressing it. And now you're like, it's like if you were going on a trip, like a frontier, and you're like, well, I'm not going to climb that mountain until I know everything that's on the other side.
Right.
But you're not going to know it until you climb that mountain.
Sure.
Right. So this is going to start getting you in the flow again and circulating again. And then the next need to know level of insight, awareness, opportunity will unfold in the flow of that circulation.
Sure. Yeah. So everybody listening,
there's a lot. Obviously, I'm cramming a life's work into this 1 hour. But of course, if you guys really want to go deep and really, really specifically and practically understand how to apply these principles step by step to your life, to your work, to your family, to whatever area you're trying to create more abundance, please check out the book, The Abundance Project, at theabundanceprojectbook.com. And also you can check the link below for the 5 hypnotic wealth, how to snap out of those 5 hypnotic wealth spells. It's a guidebook that will walk you through that as well. Yeah.
Because here's the thing. This is one chapter in the book. Right. So that's just one chapter that Derek has so wonderfully gone through for us. So the book is absolutely wonderful. So you want to check it out. So again, it is the abundanceprojectbook.com. And again, we'll have a link to the hypnotic wealth spells too. So I'm excited about that. And there's a guidebook and all that stuff.
Yeah,
All kinds of things to eat up. Yeah.
We're going to take good care of you.
Yeah.
You know, I'll share last little thing I'll share.
Sure.
My secret agenda for all of this is not just to help people have more stuff. It's great. I love it. I want you to have all the money you want, all the time you want, all the freedom you want, the lifestyle you want. That's beautiful. But ultimately, when you understand that you are the source of everything you need in your life, that's real power and real freedom. And you can trace back almost all conflict, all violence, all of man's inhumanity to man to the belief that we're separate from our good.
Right.
That we're separate from the things we need and want. And so we hurt each other for them. We go to war for them. We hurt ourselves for them. And we don't need to do that anymore.
Right.
Because you have it all within you. And when you have it all, and then you share it and circulate it abundantly, and then I have it all, and I share it and circulate it abundantly, and then she has it all, and she shares it, guess what we have? We have heaven on earth.
Right.
And I think also, by the way, okay, this is my last for sure. I told you once you pull the string in my back, it winds up. I believe the real miracle of the parable of Jesus feeding the 5,000 isn't that he made loaves and fishes manifest out of thin air. That's would be cool. It's a cool magic trick. But what I really believe, and scholars now believe, is that in that crowd of people, there was really poor people that had nothing, and there were really rich people that had entourages and had tons of abundant food and stuff. And you know, up until that moment, they were people that had their stuff and these people didn't have. It was the haves and the have-nots. And Jesus's consciousness of love, of abundance, of knowing there's more than enough for everybody, so moved and shifted the consciousness of that crowd that as they were handing around the bushels or the plates or the baskets, the wealthy people were inspired, and I get tears when I think about this, to take what they needed and put the rest in the basket.
Right.
And as it went through the crowd, suddenly it just grew and grew and grew until everybody had all they needed and there was more left over to share. And so on the planet right now, there is no lack, literally no lack.
No.
Even during the Great Depression, where people were waiting in bread lines, there was not a lack of food. They were literally taking truckloads and train loads and burning the food, because there wasn't the consciousness of circulation and abundance.
Right.
So people were starving while there was food rotting. And that's happening right now.
Yeah.
There's work, there's opportunity, there's food. We have everything we need on this planet and more for everybody to be wealthy and well fed, but we don't have the consciousness of it.
Right.
So this to me is my real mission, for why I wrote this book and created this work, and why I really want you to be part of this. I want you to be one of those in the large crowd that starts to circulate so much that everybody has enough.
Yeah,
so,
that's very timely. That's very, very timely.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Derek. It's like, wow. I found myself, and for those of you, again, who are listening, listen to this over and over again, because if you found yourself kind of, you know, your head was kind of going to mush, or it's like, what? I could feel to me, what I understand about that is that your consciousness is shifting in that moment. Yeah. So if you're just feeling like spaced out and whatnot, then again, listen to this over and over and over again, because there are things here to learn. And you have already shifted. Derek has already helped to shift your energy and to shift your consciousness. And so, and you know, don't think that, I couldn't pay attention. That's not it. That is not it at all.
That's a really important distinction. I'm glad you shared that. Yeah, you're literally going out of your mind. I'm literally, hopefully my intention is always to blow your mind, blow the circuits, so that mind structure cannot work anymore. Yeah. And it does. It's a really good distinction. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Well, because it was happening to me.
It's just like going, wait, where am I? What's happening? Yeah. My circuits are overloaded.
Yeah. And so I think that's it's a very cool thing that you've done here with us today, Derek. So I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Get the book. And then I slowed it down by actually writing it sentence by sentence so you can follow it.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's again, it is an amazing book, and absolutely check it out and listen to this again. So, thank you so much, Derek.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay.
My pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.